now it's time for our 420 Radio News for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014. This is Priscilla Simon. Oh, we have you on mute, Priscilla, I'm afraid.
There we go. Technical difficulties. All good to go.
It's okay. It's only day 2. Go right ahead.
Very well then. So this is your 420 Radio News, Tuesday, June 3rd. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has signed an agreement with British corporation GW Pharmaceuticals to provide its patented CBD-only medication for clinical trials. The drug, Epidiolex, is the pharmaceutical version of the high CBD oil used to treat childhood epilepsy that was popularized in the Dr. Sanjay Gupta documentaries Weed and Weed 2. The New York Health Department will now complete its development of the clinical trial that will need approval from the Food and Drug Administration to proceed. An anonymous state source confided that they expect FDA approval rather quickly. The New York legislature is currently considering 2 medical marijuana bills, one that would allow sufferers of certain conditions to use whole plant marijuana, and another which is a, quote, Minnesota-style medical marijuana proposal that would allow no access to smoked plant marijuana, just vaporizers, oils, pills, and edibles.
What an amazing bit of timing that the governor of New York is signing this agreement with GW Pharma to provide CBD oil just as the New York legislature is trying to decide on bills that would provide far more access to medical marijuana for not just children and not just CBD, but also THC and adults. We'll talk more about that when we get to our Radical Rant at the end of the show.
In another study designed to find something terrible about marijuana is, University of Pennsylvania researchers have found a correlation between early marijuana use and sleep difficulties. Jilesh Chedda is the lead author of the research that will be presented at the 28th annual meeting of the Associated Professional Sleep Societies, LLC. Chedda said, quote, "There is a strong relationship with age of first use, no matter how often people were currently using marijuana. People who started using early were more likely to have sleep problems as an adult," end quote. Chedda's team analyzed data collected from the 2007-2008 National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey and determined that the results from the 1,811 adults they surveyed showed both current and former marijuana users are more likely to experience sleep difficulties. The survey does not show causation, and it is possible people began or continue their marijuana use to treat insomnia, for example.
Right. That's the thing about these kind of analyses. When you take a look at a database and you try to correlate this variable with that variable, all you're finding is a correlation. You're not finding that one caused the other. It's not that marijuana use is causing sleep difficulties. It could very well be that people with sleep difficulties tend to use marijuana. I know in my case that before I had ever used marijuana, I always had trouble getting to sleep. I have one of these brains that you just can't turn off, right? I'm always thinking of something. I'd go to bed and be thinking about what I'm going to do the next day and thinking about how my day is going to go. And I found early on with marijuana use that it kind of relaxed me and it made me calm down and kind of shut my brain up long enough that I could get some decent sleep. Priscilla, you're nodding. Is that similar for you? Do you find that with cannabis use?
Yeah, totally. I can understand that because it's definitely a relaxant and it helps you just turn your brain off. And, you know, you also got to remember you're going to have tomorrow to wake up and think about all those exciting things too. So
that's right. And considering how much people in this country are using things like Ambien or having a drink or two or say 3 24-ounce 8% beers that you can't get at a Colorado store unless you go to a liquor store, you know, in those cases, you're doing so much more harm to yourself than you would be with the marijuana to be getting a good night's sleep. The one part that I did find interesting is when they said that people who started using early as a young adult or even earlier as an adolescent were more likely to have sleep difficulties, even if they were no longer using marijuana. And that just goes again to us talking about why we want to legalize marijuana for adults, to try to keep it away from the kids and their developing brains where it might have some sort of effect like messing up how they sleep throughout their adulthood.
Right, monitor the long-term effects. So as Washington State prepares to roll out marijuana stores in July, some border towns are deciding whether or not to allow the pot shops. Liberty Lake, which borders Idaho, has passed a 6-month moratorium on retail marijuana shops and may decide this summer to ban shops and processors altogether. Quote, "Personally, I don't want Liberty Lake to be known as a tourist destination to buy your marijuana," says Chris Kaminskas, a city councilwoman and mayor pro tem. Quote, "That's just not what our city is about," end quote. But Allison Holcomb, the ACLU attorney who wrote I-502, believes such bans are illegal, despite the opinion of State Attorney General Bob Ferguson that cities may ban pot shops. Quote, "Obviously," says Holcomb, "allowing counties to ban licensed marijuana businesses altogether would make it impossible to provide adequate legal resources to undercut the black market," end quote. Meanwhile, the city of North Bonneville, bordering Oregon, may go into the pot business itself. Mayor Don Stevens says that the city-run pot shop would put the council in control and explains, quote, "We've got streets that need to be paved. We've got stuff that every small community needs to pay for and less money to do those things."
Wow. One of the proposals that I had heard, and I believe this is Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes that had proposed this, or at least was writing about it, was these localities are complaining that, that marijuana has become legalized and there's going to be all this crime and attendant problems, but they won't have the resources or money to be able to deal with it. So they want a slice of the marijuana tax pie. So the proposal was, all right, you want a slice of the marijuana tax pie, you got to allow marijuana stores, because the whole point of writing I-502 was to try to put the black market out of business and put the state control and regulation and taxation of marijuana into business. These localities that want to do a pot shop ban are doing so through simple bigotry. That's all it is. When you read Chris Kaminskas' opinions on this, she was saying, well, we're a family-friendly place. We're all about family. Those aren't our kind of businesses. Those aren't our type of people. That's what I hear when I hear talk like that. And this idea that if you're going to ban it, that somehow there wouldn't be marijuana tourism from Idaho coming across to your town. Well, it's just not going to be the case. There's always been marijuana use. There will always be marijuana use. Trying to ban it just keeps it underground where you can't do anything about it. They need to take the move here of Mayor Don Stevens there in North Bonneville. The idea of a city-run pot shop actually sounds all right to me, as long as they're, competing with everyone else on a level playing field. Why not have a city reaping some of the benefits of this? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make money, so much money. We see it here in Denver.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying we make so much money here in Colorado. There's so many benefits from it.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't look like your streets are running red with blood and zombies are packing the freeways or anything. So looks like everything's okay. What's up next?
So the Rhode Island Senate Judiciary Committee will be hearing debate on the Marijuana Regulation, Control, and Taxation Act today. The Act, SB 2379, will allow adults 21 and older to possess 1 ounce of marijuana and grow 1 plant at home in an enclosed locked space. The Act would also create a regulated system of marijuana producers and retailers and tax the marijuana at the wholesale and retail levels, providing an estimated $20 to $80 million in tax revenue annually. According to recent polls, 53% of Rhode Islanders support regulating marijuana similarly to alcohol.
Wow. Yeah. 1 ounce and a whole plant. 1 whole plant. You better hope it's a good plant. You better hope you don't get mites or mold or mildew or, oh my God. This is one of the things they never consider when they write these laws. They seem to want to make it restrictive, and they don't understand unintended consequences. That is, if you're allowed to grow just 1 plant and then that plant has a problem, then you're forced to either go to the black market or to, the pot shops. If you allow people to grow, a decent amount of plants, and I tend to believe that a 10-foot by 10-foot canopy, I don't like plant counts. I like, space. 10-foot by 10-foot canopy would be enough for most growers that I know.
Yeah, but it's easy to maintain too. All right, so next up, we got your money smelling like marijuana is reason enough for the federal government to take it from you. The DEA received a tip that a man would be flying out of the Minneapolis airport with a large quantity of, quote, drug money. The feds stopped him and ran a drug-sniffing dog over his bags. The dog alerted on 2 of the bags, which the man told the feds contained the cash proceeds of his bingo business. There were no drugs in the bags, but the cash did smell of marijuana. Last week, a U.S. district judge entered a default judgment in favor of the federal government's right to keep this man's smelly money that totaled over $138,000. No criminal charges were ever filed against the man.
It's legalized theft is what it is. It's just legalized theft. The idea that you got a bag of $125,000, $130,000 and it smells like marijuana, therefore it must be marijuana money, must be the proceeds of marijuana dealing, is absolutely ludicrous. Could be this guy runs a bingo business and also likes to smoke pot. It has nothing to do with making the money, had nothing to do with, selling pot or growing pot. He likes to smoke pot. He's been around pot. The money's been around pot, and boom, you lose it. The guy he never came back to fight for his money. And so that always leads the people to say, oh, well, he must have had something to hide. He didn't want to come back to, but you never get that chance, especially when $130,000 is taken from you, where are you supposed to raise the money to fight for the $130,000 they took from you? It's insane.
Yeah. All right, so there's a new kind of coffee brewing in the Pacific Northwest, and it's Cannabis Infused. Mirth Provisions is the company behind the new cold brewed coffee called Legal, which contains about 20 milligrams of THC per bottle. Regulators in Colorado, who have been grappling with the unintended consequences of uneducated consumers overdosing on cannabis-infused edibles, have set their state's serving limit at 10 milligrams of THC. Washington has no such regulations, and Mirth expects to also manufacture cannabis-infused fruit-flavored sodas. A bottle will likely sell for $9 to $11.
Yeah, I understand why these infused drinks, infused edibles are becoming popular. Some people have an aversion to smoking. They think it's a nasty, wicked habit. Other people might want to have, the stealth of being able to have a drink or a brownie that is not going to be detectable at a concert or indoors or whatever. Personally, I've never really been a fan of edibles because when I take a drug, I like to feel it and know what's going on, so when I smoke marijuana, I can immediately feel how high I am and whether or not I should smoke anymore. If I drink a whole soda or a iced coffee on a hot day, and I down 4 of those, without realizing how much of the THC is coming into my body, that could lead to some problems. And that's what's happening in Denver with some of these people, right?
Yeah, you gotta, everything in moderation, you can't go crazy on it. But I've had some of those refreshments and they're very tasty, and the limits the effects take a little while to reach you, but when you get there, it's a nice little head change. Yeah,
it seems a little bit almost like the old Mitch Hedberg joke where he'd put a humidifier and a dehumidifier in a room and let them fight it out. We're going to put cannabis in a caffeine beverage. So it's going to be, maybe there's a little conflict there. They'll be fighting it out. What do you think?
I think so. It's a bit of an oxymoron. We'll see how it turns out.
Coffee and weed, that's what comedian Rob Cantrell always called a hippie speedball. So maybe we'll see how that turns out. All right. Well, thank you, Priscilla.
Yeah, thanks again. See you tomorrow.
All right. School is out. News is done. That means it's 420 in Denver at our Denver Bureau. So it looks pretty windy back there. Get yourself a good torch lighter and light something up. We'll be back with our Behind the Headlines right after this.
.420 Radio, turning red